All right, thanks everybody. Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about what warblers are?
Yeah, so warblers are these tiny little birds that are usually quite colorful, especially the males, as is oftentimes the case with birds, although not every time. And they're these little neotropic migrants that come up the Mississippi Flyway, which we'll talk about briefly in a couple slides. And as Monica said, there's reports of some coming in now to Minnesota, but usually they get here late April into early May. And so it'll be quite busy, especially in the Twin Cities area, to see warblers as they make their way north. So really quickly on the migration. So we're pretty lucky living in the Twin Cities. We're right on the Mississippi Flyway. It's the largest of four migratory flyways in the United States and Canada and down into Central America there. And so warblers, they'll fly thousands of miles from Mexico and South America up into Minnesota and on northward, following largely the Mississippi Flyway. And the name of the flyway, I mean, a lot of it follows the Mississippi River, which is over 2,500 miles long from up near Itasca all the way down to where it empties into the Gulf of Mexico. And just a couple of little facts about this. So warblers weigh about less than half an ounce, and they'll travel, thousands of miles up the flyway to get to their summer homes. And they top out at speeds of about 25 miles an hour, and they can fly up to 200 miles in a day. We have over 30 species of warblers that will come through Minnesota and that you can see year round. And then there's some of them that will stay in Minnesota, and we'll get into those and some of the details about them and some ways that you can identify them.
So one of the things you said, Sean, was stay year round.
Mhm.
Um, we don't have any warblers that stay year round.
Oh, I'm sorry, not year round. In the summer months. My
Yes.
apologies. Because they'll all
No,
migrate in the fall.
no, I just want to make sure everybody was like, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah,
Twin Cities summer warblers. So these, Sean, I will let you take over.
sure.
Yeah.
So these are ones that you'll see pretty often if you go out birding in the Twin Cities. So the first one is the yellow warbler. So you'll see on these slides that whenever there was a mnemonic, sort of something that people came up with that, I don't know, they largely generally agree on, it sort of sounds like that when the bird is singing. Some people can hear it, some people think it doesn't sound like that at all, and some people come up with their own whatever works. So I put the mnemonic on the slide whenever there was one. And then we also have little sound clips of the bird singing. So you can see if you can hear that mnemonic. Sometimes it helps people learn the song so that you can bird by ear. And also the Merlin app is really good. If you don't have that already, it's a free download. And when you're out birding, you can hold it up and have it, pick up the recordings. And you can look at what are those called? Sonograms of
Mhm.
the bird song. And so some people that have you need a more like, can learn better visually can match up the song with those sonograms, and that can also help birding by ear.
Yes, and
So
then I
yeah,
apologize for the misspellings.
breading.
And I also want to make a distinction. We're going to talk about breeding spots, which means that they are there during the summer and they breed there. And then there will be a few spots during when we talk about the warblers about hot spots. And when we say hotspots, it's just places that you could probably see them through migration, not where they're breeding. So there's that. Want me to play the mnemonic for the
Sure.
yellow? Yeah. All right.
So
All
some
right.
people can hear out of that sweet, 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 I'm so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of what we'll describe are going to be the males. Usually they're the bold, colorful ones. And especially when they're coming up through Minnesota during spring migration, they'll be in their breeding plumage, so they'll be really bright and colorful. So this yellow warbler, the males are bright yellow and they have streaking, so you can see sort of that chestnut colored streaking, that reddish streaking on its chest. Females will be more subdued yellow. and they will have barely any streaking. And these birds are about 5 inches in length. And then breeding spots, as you can
Oh,
see, oops, sorry. And
no,
you can see on the maps too that we have on the slides. You know, if you know your Minnesota geography, then you'll know exactly where some of those spots are. But where they have been, confirmed or probable or observed would be places to keep your eye on. So Old Cedar Avenue Bridge in Bloomington, William O'Brien State Park, Marine on the St. Croix, some of the places.
yeah, and you could see us when Sean talks about summer warblers, we're going to name a couple spots, but if there's summer warblers, they are all over where there's good
Mhm.
habitat for them.
All right, so the common yellow throat, the mnemonic, witchetty, witchetty, witchetty. Monica, do you want to play it?
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully people can hear that. I couldn't hear that very well, but hopefully you all are hearing it better. Also, I mean, we found these clips on YouTube, so if you can't hear it, just go to YouTube or whatever and give it a Google and they'll come up, or check Merlin. So habitats, largely grassy areas near water, swampy areas, and I find that they're pretty secretive. Like you'll hear that call everywhere. And
Mhm.
if you're lucky, they'll pop up and you'll catch a glimpse, but they're pretty fidgety and then they'll drop back down. And so you can see for the male here, it's got that broad black mask. It's got sort of that gray band above the black mask, yellow throat and underparts. And then females have an olive gray colored mask, um, and yellow throat. And these guys are about 5.5 inches in length. So breeding spots here, I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
sorry.
any wetland, you're okay. And some of the places that we've seen them, Lake Elmo Park Reserve is a really great spot, Blaine Wetland Sanctuary, Westwood Hills Nature Center, and St. Louis Park. All right, the oven bird. So teacher, teacher, teacher. And you want to play that? Mhm. I often find when I'm walking in the woods, I will hear that and it'll be very loud. They've got some lungs on them for being little birds, but I rarely do I ever see them. So Monica got a great shot of this one here that you see on the slide. So looking in deciduous mixed forest, foraging, oftentimes in leaf litter, and sometimes they'll pop up on the branches. And then some of the breeding spots, you can see there, Eastman Nature Center, Elm Creek. Park Reserve is where that is in Maple Grove, and Murphy Hanrahan Park Reserve in Savage. So the ovenbird males and females are similar. They have with the bold black bordered orange crown, and then you can see there's a white eye ring. And then they really do look like miniature thrushes. They sort of have that, olivey, drabby color on the back, and then you can see the black and white streaking on the chest and belly, which is characteristic of a lot of thrushes. But they are indeed not thrushes. They are warblers, and they are one of the largest warblers, along with the northern water thrush at about 6 inches in length.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why they call them oven birds is their nest looks like a small oven. Rarely found, but it does look like an oven.
All right, American Redstart. I'm going to let Monica play this so you can see if it matches the mnemonic.
Mhm.
This is similar to the ovenbird. Again, when I'm walking in the woods and I hear these, it's almost ear piercing, even if they're not right by me. They're very loud. They've got a good set of pipes on them for their song. Wide range of wooded habitats is where you can find them. And then they'll fan their tails when they're foraging around for insects. So some of the breeding spots that you see there are, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Wabaje Shishkuna, formerly the Western Waterfront Trail up in Duluth, Murphy-Hanrahan State Park, or not State Park, Murphy-Hanrahan Park Reserve in Savage, and then Crosby Farm Regional Park in St. Paul. And the redstarts, the males have a black head and neck and upper chest. Then they have those bright orange patches on the wings and the sides of their breast, and at the base of their tails. So the male is the picture on the top. And then below that is the female, who has grayish green upper parts and yellow markings instead of the orange in the same places as the male. And these American redstarts are about 5¼ inches in length, so kind of medium-ish sized warblers.
Yeah, and I would say, like all the warblers, the redstarts, you don't see many of the females, except for the redstarts. Like if you see a male redstart, start looking for the female because they're always around and very visible, very fast, like all the warblers. But it's one of the few female warblers that you're going to be able to see.
And last year at the birding festival, which we'll talk about briefly at the very end of the presentation, one of the walks that I was on at Bass Ponds, we were watching a redstart on a nest right
Mm.
by the first pond that you come to. Okay, blue-winged warbler. I will let you play the bee buzz sound. Yeah, they sound maybe a little bit more insect-like than sort of a typical warbling song that you'll hear out of the warblers. But a lot of times they're foraging around in the foliage of shrubs and small trees, and again, occasionally they'll pop up and call. And then breeding spots, again, Murphy Hanrahan in Savage, Lowry Nature Center out in Victoria, Afton State Park in Afton, Minnesota, right before you head over the border to Hudson. Um, the males mainly are yellow. They have a yellow head with a black eye stripe that you can sort of see in that photo. And then they have bluish wings with two white wing bars, which you can also see very well in that photo. And then the females are less colorful with duller wing bars. And these guys are about 4.75 inches in length.
Sorry, Sean.
That's okay.
I can't find my mute.
Oh,
Sorry.
all right, yellow rumped warbler. So if you've heard of people call these butterbutts, that's usually the little nickname that they get. You can sort of see on the top photo of the male, right near where the body sort of starts going into the tail. You can see a little bit of yellow peeking out, and you can really see that when they're in flight. So that's why they have their name butterbutt. And when you can see them sort of more head on, if you see the yellow there on the side of its breast, if you're looking at them straight on, it almost looks like they have a yellow vest on. So yellow vests, a yellow butt, and they have that dark black mask with the white broken eye ring. And then the female, as with many females, are much more drab in color. But you can see they're similar, they're just much more gray, and the throat is maybe kind of like a cream colored compared to the black or the white throat of the yellow rumped. And then her mask is that gray color that kind of matches the rest of her on her head. And there was no mnemonic that I could find. Do you want to play this song, Monica? I didn't even hear it, so I don't. Hopefully, you all heard that. Um, so boreal and mixed forests, and then you can see the breeding areas are up north and sort of like in the Arrowhead region of Minnesota. But some of the hot spots around the Twin Cities to see these are Carpenter Nature Center in Hastings, Westwood Hills Nature Center in St. Louis Park. I mean, they're pretty plentiful in the
Yeah,
Twin Cities.
these are ones where you're going to see them in your backyard. You will see them on main streets. I mean, when they come, they are the most abundant warbler.
Prothonotary warbler, also another very secretive bird. You'll hear it sing a lot, and maybe if you're lucky, it'll pop up or pop down, and you can catch a glimpse. So this mnemonic is sweet, 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 sweet. So Monica, do you want to hit play? All right, hopefully people are hearing that because I'm not hearing that at all. Okay, so males are bright yellow and they have an olive brown coloring on the back and sort of like a bluish white and gray wings. And then the females are less colorful. They're about 5.5 inches. Um, Somebody said no longer hearing audio. Maybe something got switched off. Um,
Um,
It
I'm
could
hearing,
be that Monica is unmuted or muted. Maybe that could cause it.
oh, okay, thank you. Okay, let me play it again. Thank
there you
you.
go. Yeah, so breeding spots, and you can see they kind of correspond a little bit with what's on the map there too. Pig's Eye along the Mississippi River in St. Paul, South St. Paul area, Hoxsila Municipal Park in Red Wing, and then Crosby Farm Regional Park. I know there was one nesting there last year, Fort Snelling, and then I've also seen them out. I don't know that this doesn't necessarily mean it was breeding there, but at the St. Paul Airport, I saw one a couple of years ago out there.
So these ones are going to be the more common ones that we're going to see during this spring migration.
All right, so first up is the black and white warbler. And you can see where breeding spots are up north. And so you can see also with some of the places we listed, Saxton Bog in the Meadowlands in Minnesota, Park Point in Duluth, and then Oberg Mountain. Is that up by, that's up by Lutsen area, isn't that
Yep,
right?
yep.
Yep. Okay.
And then the mnemonic is, I think of it as a squeaky wheel, a squeaky bike wheel. So let me play it.
These ones too, similar to some of the other ones that I was talking about, like you'll hear their song, and if you're lucky, they'll pop around and you can see them. And sometimes when I've seen them, they're behaving kind of almost like creepers or nuthatches, where they're traveling up and down the tree and they're sort of digging in there for insects. So males and females are both black and white striped. Males have a black throat and females will have a gray throat. And they are about medium size, so 5.25 inches in length. Black-throated green, again, another one, at least in my experiences, I will hear the call, the song, and I know I've seen one a long time ago, probably. I don't have any photos of it, but I'll hear the call long before I see it. So up north again, Arrowhead region along the North Shores, great place to look for these. As Monica has on here for hotspots, any state park up north for sure. And then habitat, again, it matches with where they are breeding. So conifer and mixed forest. So do you want to play the? Yeah, so males will be olive yellow with two white wing bars, which you can see in the photo. They have a yellow face, olive buff ear coverts. So just if you look kind of back from the eye and down a little bit, that's where their ears are. Black throat and chest, white underparts with black streaks on the flanks, which you can see there right beneath the wing. And females are similar to males, but with a mottled yellow throat. And these are also sort of medium sized for warblers at about 5 inches in length. Blackburnian, I was listening to Nerdy Birdie podcasts, and there's a lot of discussion, or there had been a lot of discussion about renaming birds so that they weren't named after people. And so somebody said that they should rename the Blackburnian flamethroat warbler, which I totally agree with. Males have that bright, brilliant orange face and throat, and the black eye patch that goes through the eye, and females will have yellow on the face instead of that orange. And they're also about medium size at 5 inches. And so breeding spots, again, looking at northern Minnesota, Arrowhead region, and then you can find them in forests and foraging in treetops. There's a on Stony Point, if anybody knows Stony Point, I guess it's still considered Duluth, but it's like right before you get into Knife River. And there's a dirt road that goes down there right along the lake. And there's a stand of trees. I wish I knew my trees better. Pine trees and willows, maybe. But just in the summer, like June, July, sometimes those trees just become dripping with warblers. And that's where I got that photo of that Blackburnian last year. Do you want to play the song?
Yeah, and then what I would say is some of these warblers, if you don't have the sounds down, don't be like, I'll never remember that. Luckily, you all have Merlin that you can rely on too. But once you start, what I've been trying to do over the years is just like nail a warbler song down. Really practice that one warbler, and that's again the Black Beridians and some of the other ones have similar calls, but you do have some tools that will help. So here's the call. That was an ovenbird. I don't think it called. I heard the ovenbird in the back.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I watched all of these, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that
No.
it did call, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, those ovenbirds are loud, so it kind of took over.
Yeah.
All right, Nashville warbler. So males will be that olive green color with a dull brown tail. You can't really see the top of the tail in this picture, but and their wings, so you can see the color of the wings there. That would be the same color as the tail. They have the bluish gray head, which you can see really well, and a small orange patch at the top, but we can't see the top of his head. So you can see that very profound white eye ring. And you can see the yellow throat that he has. And then females are less colorful and they'll have a reduced crown patch. And these guys are a little bit smaller at 4.75 inches in length. Habitats, again, deciduous and mixed forest. You can see again where breeding areas, northern Minnesota and the Arrowhead. So some spots that we know they breed are Saxon Bog and Oberg Mountain, again up by Lutsen. And then you can see that mnemonic, which I'm not even going to try to say, but will you play the song?
Yeah. One of the things I use to describe it is like almost like a car engine starting up but not quite getting there. Is another way to remember it.
All right, the Northern Parula. So this is going to be our smallest warbler at about 4.25 to 4.5 inches in length. The male will have excuse me, blue upper parts with a greenish patch on the back. So you can sort of see that on this picture here. A broken eye ring, which you can see. You can see the white on the top and the bottom of the eye, but not a complete circle. Yellow throat, you'll see a little bit of that. And a blue and orange breast band, which you could sort of see maybe a little bit of it, but because of the position of the bird, it's kind of in shadow and facing down. So Females, of course, will be less colorful and they'll have no breast band. And like I said, these are the smallest of our warblers in Minnesota. And they like to be foraging up high in the treetops. So some occasionally they'll come down. Last spring, up in Duluth, especially the Park Point area, there was what's called a fallout where the weather conditions were such that all the warblers came down and there were like tons just like on the ground and people were, you know, hurrying up there to try to see them. I, of course, had bad FOMO and went. I think it was the day before our birding festival, and it wasn't quite like that anymore, but there were plenty around to see, so it was pretty cool. Breeding spots, Cedar Creek, where is that, Monica?
That's up by Bethel,
Okay,
Bethel, Minnesota.
okay. Tetagooch off of, what is LAX?
Lax Road.
Oh, okay. And then Itasca State Park. So you can see again that corresponds with where we're seeing them on this map. And then if you want to hit the
Yeah.
song.
And I'll make a couple references to Lax, Tetagooch off of Lax. So there's the main Tetagooch State Park. And then there's another one about 4 miles away, which is I call Tetagooch off of Lax. And the other thing with the northern Prulas, I think of it as taking a comb and then putting your fingers through it, is how a lot of folks remember it. So here we go.
Yeah, they're very pretty. I mean, I think all of these birds are very pretty, but the northern Prula, I mean, just the coloring on it is just so, I think, different than a lot of these other warblers. And to me, anyway, I feel like it really does sort of live up to its sort of the fact that it's a neotropic bird. I just feel like it has that coloring on it.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, the palm warbler. So one sort of distinguishing characteristic of these little warblers is they'll pump their tail up and down, like literally like this. So if you see them sort of foraging around, and a lot of times they're on the ground foraging, and their tails are just going up and down. So that's a sure way to identify the palm warbler. Plus, with the males, you'll see that rich chestnut brownish cap on his head. So let's see, what else do we have here? Where are we? Palm warbler. Okay. Females and males will be similar coloring and markings, but males, of course, will be brighter. Both are streaked with that chestnut crown, dark eye stripe that you can see running through its eye, yellow eyebrow. So if you see that little bit of yellow above the eye, that call that the eyebrow, and a yellow throat. And these are medium-sized warblers at 5.5 inches in length.
Pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So you can see breeding areas on the map kind of scattered up, maybe more, a little bit more focused to northern Minnesota for the palm warbler.
Sorry. Okay.
Nope, you're good. Okay. Okay, now you can go.
Okay.
Tennessee warblers. So males are olive green to olive brown, and they have that bluish gray head and a darker eye stripe and a whitish brow. So you can see that pretty clearly on the photo. Females, of course, less colorful with yellowish blending on the neck and breast. And these guys are about 4.75 inches in length. They like the northern conifer forest. So again, you can see that kind of up in the Arrowhead area of Minnesota. And then breeding spot. So, you know, again, Saxon Bog, Oberg Mountain.
Let's play this one.
All right, chestnut-sided warbler. So males will have black and white streaking on the nape, They have black wings. Can't really see all that because of the leaves there in the way. And they have two white wing bars. They have a yellow crown, which you can definitely see in that picture, and a black eye stripe. And they have a little mustache. So if you could see those, it almost actually looks less like a mustache and more like little black spots on its cheeks, but they call it a mustache. So we'll call it a mustache too. And then the females are less colorful, but they'll have similar markings and they're about 5 inches in length. And they like secondary growth woodland foraging for insects down low in the bushes. And again, occasionally they'll pop up. And then they have the please, please, please to meet ya mnemonic. So Monica will play the song. So some people can get that please, please, please to meet you out of that.
Yeah.
And then breeding spots, again, similar places that we've said before. And they, I mean, you can see on this map, I mean, they have quite a broad range of breeding areas in the northern part of the state. And then the northern water thrush. So males and females are similar. They're sort of that dark olive brown upper parts and a pale yellow, or I'm sorry, a pale eyebrow that is uniformly wide and buffish along the length. And these are bigger warblers at 5.75 to 6 inches in length. We'll talk about the Louisiana water thrush later. They're pretty hard to tell apart, I mean, in my personal opinion, but there are some distinguishing features in their markings that you can use to tell them apart. And the way that the Louisiana water thrush uses, there's a lot of hip action in that bird, and maybe you'll be able to see it when we play the song when we get to that slide. But they move their back end around quite a bit. They sway. So northern water thrush likes wet wooded areas, and then we'll play the mnemonic here in a second. But hot spots can be Vets Park in Richfield, Hoxula Park in Red Wing, and then Roberts Bird Sanctuary in Minneapolis, right near Lake Harriet. Sounds like there's some other loud, chatty birds
Um,
on that.
I would say during migration, they're going to be coming soon. They're one of the first migrants. If you see a mud puddle, look for the water thrush. It's interesting that they show it up in the trees, but when I typically find them, they're in the water, they're in the mud. And they blend in, as you can see with the color, they blend in with the mud. But that's where I typically find them. All right, Sean, you may need to come to my rescue with my stupid little cough here. So now we're gonna do, these are ones that are sort of less common, but are found in northern Minnesota. So when I think of the migration being over, which, I think of end of May, early June, and then I wanna see the ones that are coming up, I'm gonna go up north. So let's see what's the first one. So the pine warbler is, again, this really pretty yellow. It has white on its wing bars. And the place that when I want to see a pine warbler, I will go to Zaxon Bog, and there's a particular place in the bog that it has them. And their call is, it almost reminds me of a chipping sparrow. A little sewing machine. But let's play it. The ovenbird. Yeah. So it's just kind of a twangy little call. And the breeding area is up north, but unlike some of the other warblers, it's not as, again, not as common. Here's the black-throated blue warbler. And if I want to see a black-throated blue, Oberg Mountain and Tettagooch off of Black's Road are the places it really loves high elevation. And so you climb the hills and you will start hearing them. The female is a little duller, doesn't have the black mask. And it's the bee buzz buzz is similar to another one that I can't think of right now, but let's just hear it. When you're up at Oberg or Tettagooch, once you hear it, you're like, oh my God, there it is. They like to be in dense woods, so you don't always get a really good picture, but they're fun to see. So black-throated blue warblers, and as you can see, again, not a lot of breeding spots in Minnesota, but we can find them.
And I'll add too, last year, Park Point and Stony Point in Duluth were two great places to see the black-throated blue. This one, I took this picture in Stony Point in May, but then I saw them again. I think it was like June, maybe sometime, up on Stony Point last year, hanging in all those trees that I was talking about earlier. It was just
Yeah,
among those that was just dripping with warblers. It's really
nice.
cool.
This is the Canada warbler, and I always think of the Canada as having this little necklace. And so this is the male, very prominent necklace, the white eye ring, a gray back. And the female, you can just slightly see the little necklace, but not as prevalent, and has the white or the yellow right by the beak. Again, Oberg Mountain and Tettagooch are like my go-to places if I want to see a Canada warbler. But they are in other places up north. And again, they'll come through. We can get lucky and find some Canadas coming through the cities. When we're down in Red Wing in May, we typically see Canada warblers. And they have let's hear their call. And we hear a white-throated sparrow in the background. So yeah, a very, very fun warbler to see. Next, Cape May warblers. I don't get to see Cape Mays as often, but I really think of their breeding areas as way up north. I have seen them at Oberg Mountain. The Boundary Waters is a great place to see them. They really love, the northern forests. And the female is just duller, not quite as dark up here, and not as distinct. The black on the chest. Let me play their song. So remember when I said there were a couple warblers that, they have that squeaky sound, and Cape May's, the black and white warblers and some others kind of have that similar sort of sound. So if you hear that, just, try to find the warblers. This is a very special one, very fun to find. Even though they're found up north, you can see these coming through during migration. So all the ones that we've talked about that are, less common and you find up north, they're going to be coming through. So we can see them here in the cities coming up soon. This is a golden wing warbler. And this is like a lot of warblers, they are declining. And we have the highest breeding population in Minnesota, which is great, but they're still declining. And so there's various projects that are really trying to help and support them. And so there's hopefully that will help because they do need help. I tend to see them in the bog. I always see them when I'm at the bog in the summer. Itasca State Park, and then Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. You can typically find golden winged warblers, and you can just tell the little yellow on the head, this black, chin, almost like a mask. Very fun to find, and when I think of them, they sound. Let me play this. They have a very similar call to the blue-winged warbler. And actually, sometimes they're hybrids. There's some hybrids of golden wing and blue-winged warblers. Not because they sound alike, but just because for some reason they breed it. The magnolia warbler. This is a really pretty one. That yellow with the black on its chest, the dark eye. I typically, if I want to find them, Grand Portage State Park. It's like I know I'm going to see my magnolia warblers there. Tetagooch and Oberg Mountain. We've talked about these a lot. Like if one of your trips, go up north and go to any of these state parks and you will find many, many warblers up there during the summer. I would say anywhere between mid-June to, maybe mid-August for sure before before they head out and before they change colors in the fall. So again, they love the up north. Let's play their song. So warblers move really, really fast. And this eye mask reminds me of a butterbutt sometimes. So like if you're catching them and you see it really fast, that eye mask is something that would catch your eye. Morning warbler. I was so excited the very first time that I ever found a morning warbler. I was going up north and I was staying in a hotel and it was in the back of the hotel. And I was just like, what is that? And once I got the call down, I was like, oh my God, it's a morning warbler. And it was there for about 4 years. So every time I went and stayed at that hotel, the morning warbler was there. It is a little more common, breeding spots, Saxon Bog, J.R. Magny, but you're going to see it at various parks up north, and you can see it's pretty spread across there. The cheery, let me play this call. So once you get some of these calls down, you're just going to be like, oh my God, there's a morning warbler. They typically are going to be at eye level. They like to be near the ground. They're not going to be the ones that are high up in the trees. So it's really nice to be able to get a good look at them. Black-poll warbler. It's another one that's in major decline. It's funny because it's the only one, it's kind of interesting. It's the only one that has little orange legs. The only warbler that has little orange legs. But the black-poll is, hangs around sometimes with the black and white warblers, but this one has a very solid black cap. The black on its sort of sides. And again, it has one of those calls again that it's very similar to a couple other ones. Let's hear it. It's very quiet, very quiet. They're going to be coming through. As you can see, it doesn't breed in Minnesota, but I have found it at Oberg Mountain every now and then. So just always keep an eye out for them. Here's rare warblers. So you will see these are ones that, over the 25 years that I've been birding, some of these I've seen once, some of them a couple times. They're reported. If you are not on eBird, you might want to get on eBird so that, and when you sign up, you'll get alerts and you can ask for rare bird alerts. And then you can decide how often you want to see those alerts. You might want to see them hourly, or maybe you just want to see them once a day. But that's where they will tell you about different, not only warblers, but different birds that are coming through, especially now during migration. Tons of sightings. So rare warblers, this is the cerulean warbler, and they're, while they're rare, there are breeding spots that are close to the Twin Cities. They are at Murphy-Hannerhan, and then in Cannon Falls on the river bottoms there, you can find them. There's a couple places along there that you can find cerulean warblers. Very, again, a declining species, loves to be in the treetops, and its call, let's do its call. It has a really good, very distinct call. Yeah, I would say at Murphy-Hannerhan, it's probably moved to a couple different locations, but it's definitely there. And then I haven't personally found it in Cannon Falls, but I know that they're there as well. And then you can see the breeding areas. Again, very sporadic. These are ones that aren't going to go up north. You can see them down here, closer to the cities. So, Sean, have you seen a cerulean?
I have, just because I am a list keeper, so I have it checked off on the list, but I don't remember where I saw it.
Okay.
And it wasn't anytime recently.
Okay. Bay-breasted warbler. So gorgeous, gorgeous bird. This sort of brownish, what's the color? How would you describe that color, Sean? Brownish, yeah.
Yeah, like a chestnut, maybe.
There, yeah. Gorgeous bird. I only see them in during migration. Hot spots, Sean, Park Point is a great one. I would say Veterans Memorial Park is another hotspot for bay-breasted, not as common. So I've maybe seen them 5 times in my life. Okay. Wilson's warbler. So, like the black pole, this Wilson's warbler has a black cap and deep black eye with the yellow, almost like a gumdrop. Um, Breeding spots, Itasca State Park, Agassiz National Wildlife Refuge. Um, they're coming through during migration. They're not seen as often, but that's why they're always just a treat when you get to find them. Let me play their call. Yeah, so almost sounds like a Tennessee sometimes. But I remember when I was in Washington State, um, they were everywhere. It was like, oh my God, Wilson's warbler. Um, but in Minnesota, they're not as common. This is a worm-eating warbler. I just remember when I started birding, um, I was always looking for a worm-eating warbler. Just because, this is 25 years ago, and maybe 30 years ago or 40 years ago, people saw them, but rarely now. I've only seen it once, and this was at Bass Ponds in 2023. So I was fortunate enough to go and see it. Um, my expectations over the 25 years have really ramped down, but they're on the ground. They like to be on the ground. So, hey, I'm always, if I see some warblers on the ground, I'm like, well, maybe it could be a worm-eating warbler. Fun warbler, that those black streaks on the head. It's not as bright as some of the others, but gosh, it was fun to see um, at Bass Ponds. And this is again, if you get on the MOU list, not the MOU list, the eBird list, it'll tell you. People will post that they're seeing a worm-eating warbler down at Bass Ponds, and a lot of times they'll give you like directions on where to go. And then of course you'll see all the people that are trying to see that same. I would have to practice that call.
I will say about the eBird lists, Monica, that you've mentioned now a couple of times. For folks that are interested, if you're not already on it, unless they've changed things since I got on it, if you download the app like on your device on your phone and sign up that way, I don't think there's an option that you can sign up for those lists. You have to log on a computer to get those email lists. They could have changed things since I got it, but I'm pretty sure with the app it might still be that you can't sign up for the email list there. You have to go log in on a computer.
Thanks. Good to know. The next one is the yellow-throated warbler, and it has been spotted here, I would say, a little more regularly over the past few years. So Sucker Lake and Gold Medal Park is where I've seen them. Again, super not common. They're not a common bird, but they have been here over the past few years. And that bright yellow on its throat, and almost like the mask. It's almost similar to the common, yellow-rumped warbler. So they love to be high in the trees. Let me just play this. remember when I heard that it was at Gold Medal Park, I went there, took my dogs, couldn't find it, sat down, and it sat right above me as I was about to leave and go home. So I was very fortunate. This is the photo of it sitting above me. The hooded warbler. Again, it's not common, but there are places close to the Twin Cities where you can see them. They love mature woodlands. They like to be lower to the ground. And so you're going to see them in sort of bushes if you do see them. William O'Brien State Park has them. That's near Marine on the St. Croix. Murphy Hannerhan always has them. And then Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge has posted them every now and then. But Murphy Hannerhan and I would say William O'Brien are like the go-to spots every year for hooded warblers. And again, that hood is just like, you can't mistake that. And I love their call. Let's get their call. So always fun to hear in the deep, deep woods, hooded warblers.
I'll say that somebody had asked a question in the chat too about it should, do you see warblers as sort of walking around, or should you stand still or sit still and wait to see if they come out? And so, going off your previous slide, Monica, on the yellow-throated warbler and how you're just sitting there and it just happened to land above you. Same for the hooded warbler. When I've gone out both to William O'Brien and Murphy Hanrahan, I've basically stood maybe paced in the same spot for about an hour, and I hear them. I'll hear them a lot, and then if I'm lucky, they'll pop out. So once you have the song, you know the sound, or if you have Merlin and you're deep in the woods and you can have Merlin going and you hear it and it identifies it, just wait in that spot because maybe they'll pop out of the bushes or out of the trees. Also bring plenty of bug spray because, like Monica said, these hooded warblers love the deep woods, and so you will get eaten up just standing there waiting for it.
Yeah, and we can talk about when we talk about the hot spots as opposed to breeding spots, because hot spots, you will see a lot of the warbler, all the various species all together. And you can see, sometimes there's, 20, 30, 40, 50 different not different warblers, but numbers. So it can be all of the above. And so, we'll talk about some of those hot spots. All right. Connecticut, again, one of those warblers that is declining. One of the breeding spots that I know of is Zaxton Bog. I've only seen the Connecticut twice and only got one photo. I've heard it a few times, but it loves to be deep in the woods. And so I was very fortunate. It popped up one time in the bog, and it looks similar to mourning warblers with that gray on the head and the black and the yellow. They look very similar, but then, just distinguishing them from their calls. And they do have this nice eye ring, white eye ring. So let's play their call. I always want to turn, I forget what warbler it is, but I always want to turn it into a Connecticut, and it never is, but I'm always hoping. So the orange-crowned warbler. So this is one that is sort of common during migration, like in the spring migration. Well, you might be able to see it. The only thing is that it's pretty dull looking, and sometimes can look like some of the other birds that are migrating through. So it could look like a sparrow, more colorful sparrow. It has the orange on the top, but it's not very common that you'll see it. And the other thing that it, sort of looks like, but it's bigger than, and that is kinglets. So they could be flying around with the kinglets. Let's do their call. Very different call. This is the Louisiana water thrush. So Sean talked about the northern water thrush. The Louisiana water thrush is way less common. And this white eye ring or white line across the eye goes down deeper back by the neck. I would say a little more yellowish, but again, it's so similar to the northern water thrush. The one thing that Sean was talking about was how it wiggles its butt a lot. It loves running water. So you'll find it in rushing water, little streams. So I found it at Banning State Park. Again, because sometimes the water is pretty loud, you don't always hear their call. But if you, try to see if you see birds in that water, always look to see because it could be a Louisiana water thrush. I've also seen them up in Duluth, but I don't remember where I saw it. But I know for sure they're at Banning State Park.
And when Monica plays the video, watch how it's got a lot of hip action going on.
Look at that. That's awesome. Good video, Sean. All right, Sean, I want to take us to the end.
Yeah, so if you haven't tuned into the other two 101s that UBC has done, we did a Ducks 101 and a Sparrows 101, and one of the questions that people had in both of them were, what are good guides and resources? So this isn't everything, but certainly things that you could look into. Obviously, we've talked about the Merlin app, so if you don't have that, it's a free download that you can put on your device. And then there's all the rest of these are books. Some of them, most of them here are specific to warblers. The Breeding Birds of Minnesota. So in the chat, I put a link to, so the maps that you saw on all the slides, I put a link to the Minnesota Bird Atlas. I forget what it's called, but it's basically this Breeding Birds of Minnesota book online, essentially. But you can go into there and you can type in any bird and it'll pull up a whole bunch of information, including maps of where it breeds, if it does breed in Minnesota, but all kinds of other information if you want to learn and you don't want to get that book is huge and it weighs a lot and it's expensive. So if all those things you don't want, but you want to have access to information on your device, the website that I put in the chat is good for that. And then Cornell Lab of Ornithology, all about birds. This link you can go to, and there's some sort of quick finders, warbler guides that you can either, again, download onto your device or print them up and bring them with you into the field or keep them in your car or something like that. So these are just some of the more well-known ones. There's plenty more out there.
Yeah, and Sean and I have been talking about spring migration. Fall migration is a whole different story with warblers. Like they lose their color. It's like you can't even believe that was the warbler that you saw during the summer. So super hard because a lot of them just become really dull and look alike. Not to say that they're not fun to find. It's just a whole different level of trying to figure out what warbler it is. So we're talking about spring migration and the warblers in full color. So yeah.
Oh,
No, go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was just going to say some upcoming UBC events, and we have a lot of upcoming events actually, and I didn't put them all on there because the font would be like 4 point whatever. But I did put the ones that were remaining in April, and then of course our big UBC annual birding festival at the Minnesota River Valley National Wildlife Refuge on May 16th. So you can find out more information about these. You can register for any of these events and other ones that aren't posted here on the Urban Bird Collective's website.
Yeah, I will say no to that. Right now, the April 12th is full. So we don't have that one. I will be putting something up for the April 25th. We're working with a bunch, or I shouldn't say that. The April 25th is with the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. So go to their website to register for that. We'll be leading a couple walks there. But on April 26th, we're going to be. Oh, that's another one. Sorry, Sean. So that's another one that was full. No
We made
problem.
these slides a while ago.
No. But on May 2nd, which isn't on here, UBC is working with probably, I don't know, like 10 different other organizations. And we're going to be out at the Mississippi North Regional Gateway Park. And it's open to anybody. UBC and several other organizations are going to be leading bird walks from about 7:30 until 2 o'clock out there. And it's great. It's on the river, and then they have a treetop walkway, which is going to be great for warblers. So there's that one, and then our annual festival. So yes. So, where to find us? Urban Bird Collective, sign up, then you'll get our newsletter and you'll get special invitations. Join us on Facebook if you're there. Sometimes there are spontaneous events that we might be doing, so I might only post them on Facebook. And then our Instagram. So there's that. And yeah, open to questions. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's any questions that were in the chat that we need to address.
I see that Jill and Louise asked about certain features to take note of being able to ID, like eye rings, wing bars. Yes, there's all kinds of, and we picked out some of the more obvious ones with all of the warblers that we had on the slides. And again, the pictures that we had were all males. Some of the slides had the female on there as well, and that was in part if either one of us had photos of the female that we could put as a side by side. But yes, things like eye rings and caps and what color like the throat or the breast is, if there's streaking, eyebrows, ear coverts, like all those things would be distinguishing features, what color they are
We
for the different kinds of warblers.
should have had just a section that was just butts because
Yeah.
honestly, like the warblers, most of them tend to be really high. And so you're going to get bottom views of a lot of them. So you don't get to see the tops of their heads or some of the other features. But, every now and then you'll get lucky. And one of the things we'll talk about, Sean, is hotspots. So we'll talk about some of the parks that people should go to. But Liz, do you have a question?
This is actually Jean, and earlier you had a slide that said you saw something at Gold Meadow Park, MEADOW. Did you mean Gold Meadow? Gold
Yes.
Meadow? The one in downtown?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. So let's see if there's another question is, so why is the chimney swift monitoring project important? Chimney swifts are declining. So their population is really declining for many reasons, but one of them is over the past 100 years or more, chimney swifts have used chimneys as their habitat. But we're losing all of those. So one, buildings are not being made with chimneys. People are capping their chimneys. And so what we're trying to do is try to save as many chimneys as we possibly can. And then the other is to figure out what are those structures that we can make that would support chimney swift roosting. So that's a whole nother thing. See, yellow throats. Yellow throats. Common yellow throats are Harriet, Alexander. Yes. Case helps, I think. Oh, nah, thanks, everybody. Figured that one out. Let's see.
I'll just add, the question in here about, should we walk around and look for warblers or just sort of wait and see if anybody pops out? And also the question about, what features should we be paying attention to? I think, if you can get your hands on a guide or, go online and look at some photos of warblers or video of warblers, get to know their song. The Merlin ID, is a great resource out in the field. It's, of course not 100% on the sounds, but it's getting smarter every day. Um, but I think just being able to go out whenever you can, go to some of these places that Monica and I have talked about in the presentation and just practice looking for them, compare what you see to, what you remember, or if you have a field guide with you, or if you have the Merlin app with you, compare the field marks to see if you can identify it. Going on walks with other folks, especially, I mean, I learn a lot every time I go on walks with UBC, just because, we have all kinds of different levels of knowledge. And so sometimes, birds that I don't know, or I'm looking at a warbler, but I can't pick it out right in the moment. Somebody else knows it, and can talk about, what are the features of that bird that we're looking at that makes it that warbler. And just the more you do that, the more it sort of gets in your head and sticks. And so that's how, I mean, I cut my teeth birding on warblers, and it was overwhelming because they, to me, all just look like really pretty yellow birds, but I had no idea. And it took years of like just looking at pictures and videos and field guides and then going out with people that know them, and looking at them time and time again before it started to stick in my head.
Yeah, I a few hotspots here in the Twin Cities. So I think of Roberts Bird Sanctuary, Veterans Memorial Park in Richfield, Murphy Hannerhan, Sucker Lake is a great place, and then another place is Boom Island, and all of those are sort of a mixture of, you can walk and walk around the park and find different warblers, or I think of Boom Island and Sucker, where there's little creeks and there's a couple bridges that if you hang out at the bridges, like the warblers will just come to you. So there's, different places like that. I think another, when I think about, oh, I want the weather to be perfect. I want sunshine, no wind, and I'm going to go out and look for warblers. But actually, if it's misting, it's great warbler time because they're going to be lower. They're going to try to, stay as dry as they possibly can. So you're going to see them lower or on the ground. So if you take your raincoat and go out to some of these parks, you're going to have a better chance of seeing the warblers. So there's that. Do you have some hot spots, Sean, that you like to go to in the cities?
Yeah, and I was also looking at Liam's question about Frontenac State Park being a good place in May to see all kinds of warblers. And yes, and I see Tessa's answered that too. Yes. And again, especially I know we were highlighting places in the Twin Cities, and then a lot of warblers, since they breed up north, we were sort of talking about up north, and we sort of neglected the southern part of the state. But because they're all, migrating up from the south, yes, any of those places in the southern part of the state too are great to go as they're making their way up the Mississippi Flyway.
Yeah, Myrie
Um,
is a great place.
oh
Um,
yeah, Meyer Big State,
yeah,
Meyer Island. No, yes, that state
yeah.
park in Albert Lee.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a great place. And if you're on social media, I know Facebook, there's Minnesota Bird Reports, I think, group that you can join, and there's lots of reports coming in already. I haven't seen any for warblers yet, but I also haven't looked in a couple days. But there's a lot of birdie action down there every spring, and it's starting.
I also want to mention before you give me a couple more of your hotspots, Sean. I also want to mention Warbler Weekend, which is May, I want to say 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's in Red Wing, and it'll be the 53rd year, I think, of Warbler Weekend. And it's put on by St. Paul Bird Alliance. And Warbler Weekend, it is what it is. It's like you can get, like Sean said, up in Park Point, you can get those fallouts. So, there'll be times where the ground is carpeted with warblers. And then there's other times where there's not as many, but it's always great birding, potentially up to 100 different species of birds that you can see down in Red Wing. So that's another great place that the warblers will be coming through pretty soon. But whether other places that you like, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Bass Ponds and Old Cedar Avenue Bridge, especially if you walk into the woods, like away from Bass Ponds, like past the boardwalk that, you can go out onto the wetland area part of the river there, in those woods. And then also, I live in the Northwest Metro, so there's a little park in Crystal, Minnesota called Hagemeister Pond. And for whatever reason, that little pocket, I mean, it'll take you not even 10 minutes to walk around the whole thing, but that becomes such a little bucket for all kinds of birds, but especially all kinds of warblers. And I know last year there was a fallout at Hagemeister Pond of warblers. So that's a nice little close by treasure. And then this was in a number of the slides, but Westwood Hills Nature Center in St. Louis Park is a great place to go. I always go to William O'Brien State Park because I love the hooded warbler. I think it's my favorite warbler, and so I always try to see it. So I go to William O'Brien and I go to Murphy Hanrahan, and I try to go early before the mosquitoes get bad because they can be really bad. And then what usually happens is after they kind of move through the Twin Cities, I'll go up north. And so I'll go to Duluth. And so Park Point, the Western Waterfront Trail, Stony Point, all those are great places to see warblers. And there's a newer place up in Duluth called Slag Point, which is also a great place for shorebirds. But I've seen palm warblers out there last year. So that's a place to check out too if you want to
Yeah.
go north.
Another place you mentioned Westwood, and I also like Wood Lake Nature
Oh,
Center
yeah.
for warblers. I don't know like where they're at with their construction, but there's an entrance that you can get in there, and I'm sure the warblers are going to be there still, even with
Yeah,
the.
and Vets Park also. So Wood Lake is in Richfield, and I heard that they're going to have their new building done hopefully this fall. But yes, the park and the trails are open. And then Vets Park in Richfield is another great place to see warblers.
All right, let's see if there's any more questions. Thanks, Homer, for answering some of the questions. Um, I'm glad you're going down to Warbler Week in Heldon. Can't wait to see you. And so one of the questions was, how long will they stay here? And I would say, first week in June, like, May-ish, first week in June is when they're gonna be heading out. And they come in different, sort of, the palms and the butterbutts and the northern water thrushes are going to be the first ones. And then different types of warblers are going to be coming in waves. So there's that. Let's see. Yeah, front neck, awesome. All right. Folks had to leave. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Sean, for all that you did to help put this together. And thanks, everybody. And if you're not signed up with UBC yet, please do. And feel free to, throw any questions, shoot them my way, and we'll get them answered. But thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. Let's see.